Welcome to Pedo Teeth Talk, brought to you by the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, a podcast show that delivers cutting-edge ideas for the professionals specializing in pediatric dentistry.
Thank you for tuning into Pedo Teeth Talk, where we bring you the contemporary issues important to you and your practice, brought to you by the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. Thank you to our Pedo Teeth Talk sponsor, Hugh Freedy, for helping us bring you great content. We couldn't do this without them. Visit them at www.hughfreedy.com. That's www.hughfreedy.com. We're here today in Chicago at the annual session of the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, recording live in the Tech Bar in the exhibit floor. And I'm here today with Dr. Oshmi Dutta. I'm very honored to be here with you, Dr. Dutta. And we're going to talk today about the APD Leadership Institute and the lessons that Dr. Dutta learned and how he's applied them. I'll tell you a little bit about Dr. Dutta. He's been in practice for 15 years, and he's focused in the past 8.5 years exclusively on pediatric dentistry. He has a large private practice in San Antonio, Texas, and also several other offices across the state. Dr. Dutta received his bachelor's degree from KLE Institute of Dental Sciences in Belgaum, India. He graduated at the top of his class with multiple awards. He then received his DDS from USC, Los Angeles, with honors. With a desire and his passion to improve academic and professional experience, he furthered his education by getting a pediatric dental certificate at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and completed his residency there at the same place. He consistently furthered his education by taking training offered by the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. He's been a presenter many times at the APD meetings, including this meeting. And he's a board-certified pediatric dentist. He's a fellow in the Royal College of Dentists, an honor afforded only to a small number of pediatric dentists. On an additional note, he is actively involved as the managing director with his family business and spends a significant amount of time and effort managing a business with a multinational presence of over 300 employees. Due to various circumstances, he has been challenged to be a leader in unique situations related to business, so he has a lot to offer us. And he subscribes to what we'll hear about today, the employee-first philosophy. This has given him a keen sense of the similar needs of most businesses he has been involved in, the lessons learned to improve practice and management. Dr. Dutta, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you being here with me.
Thank you, Dr. Berg.
I wanted to start out by talking about this Leadership Institute. That's what brought us here today is, with your previous experience in business and your family and your own businesses. You attended the APD Leadership Institutes. You said it was a transformative experience for you. So tell me about why was it a transformative experience?
Well, thanks, Dr. Berg. So the Leadership Institute run by the APD has evolved over the last 5 cohorts to be an exceptional learning environment. There is the world-class School of Business at Northwestern, the Kellogg School of Business, that brings exceptional talent and teachers to solidify and explain some very elemental concepts of leadership and their utilization in organizations, institutions, and even in a practice, and also helps you build yourself as a better leader. But it's truly the lateral learning that goes on in the room, because you've got a cross-section of pediatric dentists. There are people from academics, there are people from practice, there are people who've served in leadership positions and are learning to further themselves. And then there are what I'm going to go out on a limb and say young leaders like myself and Dr. Eid who are...
You're young. I'll declare you young.
Okay, I appreciate that. So we're trying to enhance what we know and bring it together in a cohesive format so we can further the profession and be efficient in our approach to leading the practice environment, leading in the professional environment, and helping the institution of the APD, the organization of the APD, to grow and continue to be on a trailblazing path.
That's fantastic. I think we're going to talk, I'm asking some specific questions about your own experiences and the Leadership Institute, and mainly the principles that you deploy and what you learn there. And I want to somehow eke out from your perspective, having had this business experience going into the Leadership Institute, what was more affirmational and what were the new skills that you learned? Because a lot of times we go to these things and I already know this, I feel better, the confirmation bias. What did you learn differently? Well, I think we'll explore that as I ask you a few questions today. So I'm going to start with, you and I talked, and I got to hear the great things that your philosophies are in terms of how you deploy leadership. So I will say, you talked about inclusive leadership. what do you mean by, it sounds like an obvious thing to define, but what would you say is inclusive leadership, and why is it so important?
I would say, Dr. Berg, that one of the key takeaways, I had a professor in dental school who said, all of this makes no sense till one day when all of it makes complete sense. And
good saying.
That was exactly how I felt. We went to 3 years of, sort of varied exercises that were bits and pieces, and the whole movie came together in an edited format almost towards the end. And it all led me to believe that this was to make the individuals who participate in the process to be better inclusive leaders. And what I meant by inclusive leaders was this is a leader who is people-oriented. This is a leader who's a good listener. This, which I definitely was not, and I definitely need a lot of improvement in. So I was able to identify that as a key area of improvement for myself.
I see.
These are people who recognize other people's talents and strengths in their team and make it work. If you've got someone who's a great three-point shooter, and to ask them to take the ball to the line every time is not a good idea.
Right.
And so
that's the key. That's the essence of leadership. Really, is identifying talent.
And exactly
matching it with the right place in the organization, with that individual and the organization's needs.
Correct, because then that helps the individual grow with your organization, which ultimately makes your organization grow. So for our practices, to tell people to do a defined task is very good, but to allow them the freedom to grow as well, as we do as practitioners, is very important too.
Yeah.
And inclusive leaders focus on the long term. They focus on the vision. They don't get bogged down by small, discrete problems that occur on a daily basis. They don't let that define their leadership.
Right.
And
they stick to the plan. And I want to just interrupt a moment maybe and go off on that, because that's so important to stick to the plan. And, when you go into a business, I've been involved in many large and small businesses myself, and the leader will always say, we got to make our strategic plan. So talk about your role, your perspective on the role of strategic planning. What does it mean for a business? I mean, take it from a small private practice to a large group practice. What does it mean to strategic plan? Why is it important?
In essence, strategy is the blueprint for any action in an organization. So if you are a practice and you don't have a strategy going in, what is your goal? Where are you going?
Right.
How are you going to lead this group of individuals into this herd that you have, your followers who really trust you, and that's why they're there on a daily basis.
So do you think that a lot of people don't have strategies, or they have one, they just don't take the time to develop a plan related to that?
I think dentistry suffers from a acute lack of strategy. Like, as practitioners, we don't wake up one morning. We go through the day. We don't get into the day. And there's a difference there. And I think that if people understood the value of crafting a strategy, how many dentists look at a year ahead of time proactively and go, this is my goals for this year. These are my financial goals. These are my treatment goals. This is my personal life goals, and I'm going to achieve them. A lot of the frustration, the burnout comes from not having a strategy, and at the end of the year, taking stock and going, I'm not where I wanted to be. Well, you didn't set a goal to begin with. So
spinning your wheels a bit.
That's
sometimes.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it builds. One of the things about strategy is it's a committed vision, and so when you have that committed vision, it allows the stakeholders to be actionable components of that vision, and it really creates an understanding between everybody. This is why we're here. This is what we're going to do. And we're going to evolve with the environment, because a strategy is only as good as its action and the environment that it's in. You want to swim, but you're in the desert, it's not going to work. So you really need to put those components together.
So thinking of strategy or lack thereof, we all make decisions during the course of our days. As the defined leader of the practice we're in, we make good decisions and bad decisions. How do leaders make good or bad decisions? What's the kind of ideology, or how does that work?
So, as humans, we never think we made a bad decision when we make it. That's the essence of good or bad. If we knew it was bad going in, we wouldn't make the decision. But emotionally charged decisions, biased decisions on factors that are not part of your long-term strategy, taking detours will usually lead to bad decisions. And we consciously make bad decisions sometimes with the hope of overcompensating in the future. And
we consciously make bad decisions. Can you just tell me a little bit about that?
My father, who's beyond is my guide for everything in Honey Knows. Sorry. He said that decisions made under duress are always bad. Mm-hmm. So if you feel that you're going to be making this decision poorly, walk away for a few minutes, reassess where you are, recalibrate, and come back. And we make those decisions every day. A mom does not want to sedate a child, whereas you know that the child's best outcome is through a sedative, through the practice of sedation and then completing the treatment. But this parent they're not wrong. We both have equal views of the best interest for the child, yet we're divergent in our approach as to how to bring that together. So bridging that gap, explaining that you're advocating for the child, which is the essence of what we do, and bringing that decision in a learnable format to the parent is what we make actionable. And this is where a bad decision can become good, or a good decision to treat the kid can go bad really in a hurry. So that emotional bias, you know what, I'll just do what she wants, For that reason, one of the things that we instituted in my practice a few years ago was we never do same-day treatment unless it's an emergency. And the reason was because people need time to absorb the information. They're not dentists, they're not professionals. And they're completely emotionally involved with this decision because it's their child. So to tell them to make a snap decision, the chances that they'll make a good one are very low.
Right. Same applies to us. Right?
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is bad decisions could be made in big part because of not pausing, taking a breath.
Because the intentions are always good.
Right.
So you always justify bad decisions. Well, my intentions were good, but that doesn't help. You've already gone down the path of the bad decision. So now the consequences are bad.
Yeah, exactly. So we will pause for a moment for a word from our sponsor.
Hugh Freedy is the global leader in dental instrument manufacturing and infection prevention solutions that keep you performing at your best. For more information on Hugh Freedy products, visit hughfreedy.com/AAPD-crowns. That's hugh-freedy.com/AAPD-crowns. And enter the promo code 2682 if placing an order for Pedo Crowns.
We are back with Dr. Oshmi Dutta. We're here at the Tech Bar at the annual session of the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, and we're talking about Dr. Dutta's experience with the APD's Leadership Institute and the lessons that he's learned. And Dr. Dutta, we were talking earlier about the distinction between, as you went to the Leadership Institute, what you learned that was affirmational, oh, I do that, I feel good, I'm doing the right thing, versus, wow, that's really something new that I can take and go back and improve myself. And I want to, as an example, I want to talk about negotiation skills.
Sure.
Because you and I talked about that, and as a leader, that's something we all negotiate every day. We negotiate with our partner, we negotiate with our children. Well, we actually shouldn't negotiate with our children. We should just say, nope, that's the way it is.
Right.
But the new way, of course, is negotiating. It doesn't work, by the way. Yeah. Sidebar. But in any case, I think we all have to negotiate in our businesses every day. So what did you pick up? We'll take that as an example, because I think you knew something about all the things. All of us do when we go to the Leadership Institute. We have confirmational bias.
Absolutely.
But you picked up some things on negotiation, because I know they have experts that talk to you about that. So tell me what you learned about negotiation.
I have to put a peg out for Lee Thompson. I would encourage all of you to read her little book, get it on Amazon, Google her. I mean, this woman is amazing. And I can tell you that she was probably the most impactful teacher or lecturer in the entire 3 years for all of us. So affirmational, I learned that I can negotiate one-on-one really well for a very, very good outcome. What I did not know was that when a group is involved, when there are multiple stakeholders and different things are valuable to multiple stakeholders, I failed miserably in that exercise. So
did you realize you were failing miserably before you went to the course, or did you not even know? I mean,
I did not even know. So
said, I've been failing, you said, after you heard about the right way to approach it.
Right. And so when I first walked into the first exercise, which was the first part of the morning, we did great. And I think I may have set a record in negotiating a phenomenal price. Dr. Cavallino, I still apologize for taking all your money. So the interesting thing was that when this exercise involved multiple people, which is what we deal with on a daily basis in our practices, we are not negotiating in a binary or distributive manner. We're negotiating the parent-kid triad is our first multi-level negotiation that we do. And you and mom decide you're going to do this under nitrous and the kid is not part of the plan. Guess what's happening? It's not happening. It's a failure to negotiate. So that was a big, big part of it. And something that I always practiced but was not affirmed till I got there was I always look at my alternatives. I'm always willing to walk away. I have never looked at a house that I absolutely must have. I've never looked at a product or a car that I must have. So I can always walk away if the terms are not to my liking.
So you're a tough person to negotiate with. They should use you for training, right?
I don't know. But I enjoy the process, if that makes any sense. It must be my Indianness to get a deal. But I definitely felt that Lee brought up a concept of BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
BATNA, B-A-T-N-A. Yeah, BATNA.
And she said the other thing that she brought up was the principle of anchoring. You anchor high on something, you're likely to get a better outcome. I don't know if this would work very well. So I tried to see if it would work in our dental setting. Mom, I don't want to sedate. So sometimes I've said this. Parents are like, I don't want to sedate my kid. I'm like, you're right. We can sedate this child. We're actually talking about general anesthesia here. So that's anchoring high in my opinion. And the parents say, no, wait a minute. I wanted to do this with Johnny sitting on your lap and you drill away. And it's not happening. And then conversely, it allowed me to walk away and tell the parents, I may not be the best fit for you. My best alternative to our agreement is I walk away from this. So when you have that agreement, as much as it breaks our hearts to not be helpful to that entity, sometimes that is your best alternative to a negotiator.
Yeah. So we could talk all day on negotiation, but I think that's probably one of the best plugs, as you just stated, for the Leadership Institute and what it gives you. Because even seasoned business people go there and realize I've been doing it maybe not quite the right way
for a long time.
And everybody who goes there says, wow, this has empowered me to do so much. I want to jump to team building. Their aspect of leadership is building teams. I want to ask you, Dr. Dutta, what's its impact on efficiency, reduction in dispute in the organization? Every practice has drama. Hopefully not much.
Sure.
You can't expect that it will never be there. But how do we manage the overall dynamics and the group dynamic and have positive interactions in your organization?
So I'm going to say this since my dear friend is here. I am not a fan of the New England Patriots because they win every time. And they win because they're a high-performing and a high-performance team. So there's a difference between the two from where you're a high-performing individual to being part of a high-performance team. We all have high-performing individuals, right? We're high-performing individuals. But then, are we a high-performance team? Do we consistently bring it? Can we score the 40 points like Steve Curry every single time? And can we, dunk that, buzzer beater every single time like LeBron? Can we change the outcome on a consistent basis? Can we be relied on? And this comes from building a high-performance team. Because all the factors that make a high-performance team it's not just by injecting talent into it. It's also by reducing the friction. It's also by taking away dispute. It's also by taking away inefficiency, It's always been done this way because Joni says it's been done this way. We're not. Why can't we challenge status quo? Why can't we take a young person who joins the practice and see what ideas they have? How many of us, it's all about empowerment, accountability. If you empower your teammates, they will lead you to high performance. And the best example for this is Formula One. I don't know if anyone follows Formula One. I'm a big fan. And the teams that win are not the ones with the best driver. That's the high-performing member. The teams that win are the ones with the high-performance team, the ones who can get in and out of the pit 3 seconds before, 2 seconds before.
Every time I put a rubber dam on, I think of the pit, Get the clamp, get the dam, okay, good to go.
There you go.
Right.
Excellent. That is something that's so key to understanding, because we all harp about how good we are. Do we harp about how good our team is or how we get this done?
Right.
And do we put into action the things that we need to do? Do we compliment them enough? Do we create a culture of high thinking and high performance? This is what we need to do to distinguish ourselves from all the competition at bay.
Right.
We are under threat from various entities, various philosophies, the do-it-yourselfers, the people who don't agree with our philosophy. But when you distinguish yourself with a high-performance team, it shows. When you act like the expert and behave like the expert, you are the expert.
So, of course, when we think about, Oshmi, the high-performance team, you think about the culture. You're creating a company culture. So why is that so important? You kind of said it, but how does culture really impact the values of a practice? And if we're not singing from the same song sheet, or we are,
you couldn't have brought it all together better, because there's a saying. A lot of you must have used Zappos, the shoe company. That's a company that took a morbid product, shoes, which we don't care about, and some people really care about, and brought together exceptional customer service. You didn't buy the shoe from us? Send it back to us. We'll still give you $60 back, and hopefully you'll buy another one. Oh, the shoe didn't fit? We're sending you a new one. Hopefully in 14 days you'll send us the other one back. Trust engenders culture. Trust brings about a sense of excellence. So when you trust your teammates to do something well, you're culturally intelligent. You're giving them cultural intelligence that allows them to build towards your vision, your strategy that you talked about in an earlier question. This is extremely important, because your culture is the visible component. Consumers will only like a product or a company if they love the culture. If they don't like the culture of whether it's being helpful, whether it's being experts, whether it's being available.
Well, this is what they remember about us. If we have to put a name to what they remember about our practice, it is the culture that they remember. It may be a specific thing or something, but it's a reflective of the culture that we create. I want to move a little bit, because we have just a little time left, but I want to ask. There's so much I want to ask you, and we have limited time. Sorry about that, but we'll do this another time too.
Sure.
I promise.
Sure.
But maybe just a couple quick points on a few things.
Sure.
Crisis management. No matter how well we plan, things happen. And we have to learn to navigate a crisis. So what are some of your takeaways? How to manage a crisis?
I would say, in terms of the context, crisis, the class on crisis was probably one of the best ones. But the negotiation just got everybody fired up. So the exercise of negotiation was better, but they were Tim Feddersen and Lee Thompson probably are equally ranked in my book. And crisis is something that we are dealing with as individuals in our practices. We deal with as professionals, as a group. We've had multiple media crises, and Dr. De La Rosa, Dr. Nickman, as leaders in this organization, have faced those crises and have to be the national voice. Frank Rejak, my clinic director in dental school, used to say two things. If you say it before, it's a reason. If you say it after, it's an excuse.
Right.
That is very important in crisis management. You need to get ahead of the crisis.
It's also strategic planning. I mean, it all circles back to some of the same things. Culture, crisis management. It's all about planning versus reacting.
If you don't have the culture, you can't react to a crisis, because then everybody's walking around with their head cut off like a chicken. So
this is why the Academy now is focusing on safety.
Yes.
Which is really a strategic planning.
Correct.
But there's also management in the event something occurs as part of that. So I think that's fantastic. I'm going to move to another point that you talked about earlier that is so important to you, Oshmi, and that is developing an employee-centric business versus a patient-centric business. And I think that talks about the internal customer, the team, and making sure that it's a satisfying place. So talk a little bit about your philosophy related to employee-centric versus just patient-centric.
So this philosophy comes from self-preservation, self-improvement. In my opinion, the most important person is the professional whose life has to go on for the next 30 years in this environment, right? How do we make that sustainable? And we can't make it sustainable if we keep switching philosophies based on what mom wants us to do or what the patient wants us or does not want us to do. We can't switch it just because there's anecdotal, cases that show that this, I did it this way, so let's go and do it this way. Facebook is not evidence, just to put that out there, okay? So the most important thing here is that you have to stand on the shoulders of giants, and the giants are your team members. You have to make them giants as a leader so that you can stand tall. Now, I don't mean that you should not have a patient-centric business. I'm saying it should not just be a patient-centric business. So many of us feel the need to constantly satisfy the consumer. There has to be a balance. If you just continue to do that, you're going to burn out. You're not going to have any resources left. And since you are completely focused on people you meet once every 6 months versus the people who you're with 11 hours a day or 10 hours a day, there's going to be a clash.
It's really about, put on your oxygen mask so you can help others.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're not breathing and taking care of yourself, you can't take care of others.
You can't take care of others.
Same principle. I want to conclude with a very important point that you and I talked about. And given all this and creating this amazing business, this practice, caring for each other and for patients, it relates to the need to have some social community responsibility as a pediatric dentist. And I think by nature, all of us are socially and community conscious. So how do you balance, the tremendous expectations that are on us as pediatric dentists with the needs of taking care of ourselves and our businesses and things? How do you balance that?
We're very fortunate. The Academy does so much for us in terms of creating guidelines that create some sort of symmetry. A dentist in Boston, a pediatric dentist in Boston practices very similar to the one in Phoenix, who practices very similar to the one in Seattle or Tampa, Florida. And these guidelines are the sort of the infrastructure for us to succeed as being the best, succeed as being professionals. If we are not in a community, if we're not recognized as leaders, as we're not recognized as experts, our profession doesn't stand a chance, right? Because now I can ask anybody, my best friend who's a dental assistant doesn't think you should sedate and put a crown on that too. That's, how many of us have heard that, right? So who's the expert here? So where does that expertise come from? It comes from both. You can't tell a parent, I know better because I went to school. That doesn't flow well. It comes from the parent trusting you, understanding that I believe in your services and I want your services and I understand that you are the expert. Even though I may not be fully on board with the way we're going to do this, but I trust you.
Yes. Well, that's fantastic. And I want to thank you, Dr. Dutta, and I urge our audience to listen to you and your appearances. He has so much more to talk about, his writings, his lecture appearances. We're all going to learn a lot, as you did, from our Leadership Institute. So we talked today with Dr. Oshmi Dutta about the APD's Leadership Institute, the learnings that he had. And I want to thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank our audience for tuning into Pedo Teeth Talk, where we bring you the contemporary issues important to you and your practice, brought to you by the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Pedo Teeth Talk is brought to you by the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, the show that delivers cutting-edge ideas for the professional specializing in pediatric dentistry. If you have any questions or comments, please email info@aapd.org. We welcome your ideas for future shows and guests. For more information on the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry, visit aapd.org.